I want you to think of a comfort game. I think you know what I mean by this, a game that you often go to whenever you want to feel better, safer, just generally more at ease. I'm pretty sure you've already thought of many games that already kind of fit this description perfectly, especially knowing my audience, and trust me, I have a handful of games I turn to just to generally unwind after a long day. Stardew Valley, No Man's Sky, and probably a handful of others immediately come to mind for me. There's one game that I look to whenever I'm looking for genuine comfort. A genuine feeling of safety and warmth. And, well, very few things have come close to this game that we're going to be talking about. It's a Roblox game that goes by the name of Oobja. I know it's strange that a Roblox game of all things is what I'm talking about, but I really do mean it when I say that this game is just genuinely, truly heartwarming and beautiful. So much so that I'm not the only one who really even agrees with this, and some have even created their own spin-offs of sorts because of this game. So I want to take you on this journey, a journey that'll have us scale the tallest peaks and vastest fields as we take a look at Oobja and other games about loving yourself. The first game up is, well, Oobja itself. This game, which was made by a developer group that I don't even know how to pronounce properly, was made on June 2nd of 2023. The game itself starts off on a crossroad high above the clouds, facing what appears to be a very simplistic mountain. At the end of each crossroad is a different colored ball, and at the top of the screen, something is asking you to pick a color that you like, and that it apologizes if your favorite isn't among the four. Another thing that you might notice is that the player appears sad, almost as if they're at their lowest point. Naturally, I would pick blue, but regardless, the mysterious entity speaking to you says that it looks nice on you as the color you chose is projected onto your character's shirt. The entity then says that it loves you and that it wants to do the best for you before extending the road facing the mountain outwards so that way the player can reach it. The path to the mountain does require you to jump, but the entity does tell you that it will catch you if you fall, which it does actually teleport you back up to the mountain if you do fall, with the entity telling you to be careful. As you walk around the mountain, the entity says that you can be anything, a boy, a girl, or really neither one. Obvious jokes about this game saying trans rights aside, the game does give you one of three options. Selecting boy or neither will have nothing really change about the player, while selecting girl will have the player's body change to a more feminine torso style. Regardless of your choice, the entity will be happy, saying that it'll love you no matter what you are. After turning the corner on the mountain, the entity will then point out how you look gray, quite literally and probably figuratively, assuming that you're even playing this game, and will ask you if you're okay with that. Selecting that I am will have nothing change, and the entity will respond by simply saying that it wants you to be okay. Selecting I am not will have the player's head and arms change to the skin tone of their actual player model, with the entity proclaiming that you look nice. And of course, as you round the final corner and start approaching a long bridge extending outwards from the mountain, the expression on the player will not only change from sad to neutral, but the entity will talk about how it's lonely on the mountain before asking for your name, which you'll get from your display name. After a long walk along the bridge, you'll finally come face to face with the entity who is none other than the Oobja itself, and the player can't help but smile as it speaks.
You can see me now. Oh. Hey, I know. I used to look just like you, but I changed. A lot of things changed, really. It's like one day you have everything you want, and then the next, life gets really hard. But it's okay. Things really do get better, I promise you. I promise.
After this, it will ask for a hug, in which upon clicking the Oobja, it'll begin to sparkle and reflect the sky around it as it leaves you with the simple message of, I love you. And after sending you to the credits screen, it asks you to send the game to someone that you care about, which, I mean, to be fair, is kind of what I'm doing with this video, sending this to people that I actually care about. I'll probably leave a link to each of these games down below so that we can check them out for yourself. But that's just the original. There's at least 2 games inspired by this game that I still want to talk about here, and we'll continue this train with one that's more of a direct inspiration, shall we say. Our next game is a somewhat reimagining of the previous one named Ajbu. Well, yes, I'm aware that it's just Oobja backwards. This one is actually kind of interesting. This game was made by Super Fighter Cool. Okay, you know what? I think I'll just go by their display name of Eggy, let's be honest here. The game starts similarly to the previous, at a crossroads with 4 different colored orbs at each end. This time, not only is it significantly more detailed, but the entity asks you to not overthink your choice. Depending on your choice, the entity will reminisce about something in their past before creating a winding bridge leading to the cliff nearby. And as you approach the cliff, the entity here will talk about how it can be difficult to truly care about someone that you barely know, and that it'll soon ask if you're a forgiving person. Saying yes will have the entity talk about how it's good to have that quality, while saying no will have them just simply say that they understand that they won't pry in any further. Either choice leads to the entity talking about an old friend of theirs that they worked to create a whole universe with, up until that friend mysteriously turned on them and, well, this entity decided to take everything that was theirs back with them. And while the entity would eventually forgive their former friend, it didn't really mend any relationships, and it simply worked for closure. The entity does soon talk about how it tries to be perfect for the friends that it still has, and that the mountain is kind of almost a reflection of that. It doesn't directly say this, but it's more or less just kind of me implying it. But, you know, it's a reflection of that particular notion because, well, there's so much detail that, well, the entity ended up losing themselves and had to forcefully stop themselves before they ultimately weren't able to even finish it in the first place. They even mention, as you start to reach the final bridge, that the side that we never walk on doesn't even really have anything on it. As you walk along the final bridge, the entity comes to a realization that if you get caught up in trying too hard to be perfect or making the right choice, then nothing ever truly gets done, and notes that after having spoken to you, it's learned to care about you. It's then, as you reach the end of the bridge, that the entity makes its presence known before you.
Yeah, I know. I'm a mess, right? I certainly feel like one. Always starting things, never finishing them. So many ideas I can't bring into reality. Just kind of turns you into an exploding mass of thoughts, you know? At least you could see this one. It's not perfect by my standards. Heck, the mountain doesn't even have vines, but I made something, and making something is better than making nothing. That's a good rule to live by, in my opinion. And besides, if I didn't point out the flaws, you wouldn't have noticed, right? Maybe. But regardless, it was very nice to meet you.
My favorite thing about this particular game is that it's definitely a little bit more about art. As a bit of an artist myself and knowing a lot of artists, a thing that I notice is that some end up getting caught up in trying to be perfect. And while yes, this can certainly apply outside of the bounds of art, I appreciate the message of at least trying to get something done rather than getting nothing done at all. And it's honestly something that, well, is something that I'll probably look back on in order to at least have some sort of motivation to keep going, if you will. But with that game over, the final game awaits. Our final game is a game called For You. It's a completely different experience inspired by Oobja and created by Tixelate and is, at least for now, unfinished, but despite that, it's still a pretty good experience. After a very concerningly long loading screen, the game opens on a title screen, and after selecting the only available chapter, it then takes you to a character creation menu. It's not really too overly detailed or anything like that, it's pretty simple, and you know what, I can kind of appreciate that. And after making the closest to my ideal personal looks, we open on a path in the middle of a flower field. Much like the previous games, we get someone speaking to us and asking for our name. And after reminding me that it costs $10 to change my username on Roblox, the narrator remarks on how nice the name sounds regardless. After starting down the path, the narrator comments on how beautiful the scenery is and asks how you're feeling. When you give an answer, the narrator talks about how happiness is something that's natural to want and how it's something that one will try to get after they've already experienced it. But he then talks about how it's fine to not always be happy and that feeling sad or angry is just as valid. After passing by a few butterflies later on down the path, the narrator then asks how your day has been and how he hopes that you're doing okay. He talks about how life can be hard sometimes, but that things are bound to get better and that he believes in you. But after a long walk, you finally come face to face with the narrator, the old man himself. You look wonderful. Have a seat. I'm happy that you're here, so thank you. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'll try not to forget you. Don't worry, I won't be going anywhere. I'll always be here. For you. After this, Hill says that he'll miss the time that he spent together with you, and that he'll miss you, and the game comes to a close, thanking you for your time. One thing that I can appreciate is that comfort can be found in the most unusual of places. Most expect it from a friend or someone close, and many see comfort in a night alone wrapped up and ready to sleep. When it comes to games, many expect the coziest games to come from bigger places. But sometimes when you need someone to remind you that you're loved, or that you need to slow down, or even that they're just happy you're there, sometimes that comfort can really only come from looking really hard at the most unorthodox places. And that's kind of what I appreciate about these games. They're a lot smaller than other kind of comfort or cozy games that you will regularly find, and they're just more or less made by singular individuals, just because they really wanted to brighten somebody's day. And you know what? I can really appreciate that. And as always, have yourselves a nice day.